May the peace of Yah be with you. Today's reading, we are getting it from the book of Luke. We are going to read in Exodus also. In Luke chapter 14 verse 5, Jesus is asking, he is challenging their knowledge of what the Sabbath should be, or what the Sabbath is supposed to be. He says, then he asked them, if one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately put it out? Will you not do work when these circumstances arise on the Sabbath day? And his argument was that the healing of the sick and the setting free of the captives should not be counted as an offense against the Sabbath, because he actually is pulling out an ox, he actually is pulling out a child from the pit. Let us read the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 23 verse 4. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to return it. What? If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, this is an enemy. In other words, if you come across your enemy's child on drugs, if you come across your enemy's child addicted in whatever substance that they are taking, if you come across your enemy's child being beaten by strangers, help that child. Help that child. This is what is actually the law. This is the interpretation of the law. But let us go further. What if this happens on the Sabbath day and you are observing the Sabbath? Will you look away because it's the Sabbath day? The law demands you to bring help. The law demands you to bring, and Christ is asking them, if an ox fall on the Sabbath, are you going to let it? Because tomorrow when it's not the Sabbath, it will have died. There's no opportunity for you to save it anymore. Right there on the Sabbath, it is better for you to face the judgment of the Sabbath than to let that ox die there. And the judgment of the Sabbath is that you die. In other words, you have to give your life for the ox. You have to give your life for your child. You have to give your life for your enemy's child who has gone astray. Is that the gospel? Is it too hard to ask? I want to show you something. It's gonna be quite a long read, but it's worth it. Let us read the book of Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 3. It reads as follows. And I saw 6 men coming from the direction of the upper gate. This is the vision of the prophet, which faces north, each with a deadly weapon in his hand. With them was a man clothed in linen, who had a writing kit at his side. He came in and stood beside the bronze altar. This is now the scenario of the temple. Now, the glory of the God of Israel went up from above the cherubim where it had been, and moved to the threshold of the temple. Then the Lord called to the man clothed in linen, who had the writing kit at his side, and said to him, go throughout the city of Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it. Go through, this is the Lord, the owner, saying, go through the city of Jerusalem. Everyone who is grieving and lamenting over the detestable things which are happening in Jerusalem, put the mark on their foreheads. This is not the mark of the beast. This is the mark of the Lord. Put the mark on those that are, not those that are going to church, not those that are coming to, but everyone in Jerusalem. Those who are seeing that this is an abomination that is being done here, and they are crying and they are lamenting for what is being done. Put the mark on them. As I listened, he said to the others, follow him through the city and kill without showing pity or compassion. Slaughter the old men, the young men and women, the mothers and children, but do not touch anyone who has the mark. Begin at my sanctuary. So they began with the old men who were in front of the temple. They began from the sanctuary. The old man who were in front of the temple, he says, then he said to them, defile the temple and fill the courts with the slain. Go. So they went out and began killing throughout the city. While they were killing and I was left alone, I fell face down crying out, alas, sovereign Lord, are you going to destroy the entire remnant of Israel in this outpouring of your wrath on Jerusalem? In other words, everyone will be destroyed, because people were not crying, people were not lamenting for the detestable things. People were worshiping idols, and it had become a norm in Jerusalem. The neighbors' donkeys were falling in the pit, and it had become a norm. The neighbors' children are suffering from nyaope. It has become a norm, and yet you can do something. The neighbors' children are addicted, and you can do something, but it has become a norm as long as they are not your children. Who said you are going to go scot-free? Who said you will be found guiltless because they are not your children? Because the guilt will be because they are your neighbors. Because you thought, no, it's about man. No, when it comes to the rule of God, does not matter whose child it is. Oh, Reke. Abba. Hey, it does not matter. It does not matter. It does not matter. It does not matter. As long as you can do something, even if you can't do anything, there's something you can do. Pray. Pray for them. Because nowadays, the law is actually against us doing something. But the best thing you can do is to pray. And prayer will give you the boldness to go and see what you can do. Sometimes a door will be shut, then you have done your part. But persist. Will you go 10 times when they say no? Will you go the first time? Will you go the second time? Will you go the third time? Will you go 10 times when they still say no? If your answer is I can't go 10 times, is too much, at least 3 times. Moses went to Pharaoh 10 times. God told him, I will harden his heart, and every time he went, Pharaoh came with another thing. But Moses already knew that, what if their neighbor's heart has been hardened? And I'm telling you now, it has been hardened. They are not just gonna lay down and believe in your gospel. They are not just gonna lay down and believe in your God. They are not just gonna lay down and believe in the Christ that you have come to preach. But are you willing to go 10 times? Moses went 10 times to Pharaoh, and he did not dismay until Pharaoh was willing to let them go. By the mighty hand of God is at work. God is not judging your neighbor, but the God that your neighbor has bowed down to, they must be judged. But you need to go 10 times for the judgment to be complete. Cry for the city. Cry for South Africa. Cry for your nation. Cry for your neighborhood. Cry for your community. So that when the angel